The Becoming Unsilenced podcast is about awakening to the greatest potential you always were. Listen to teachings, interviews, and inspiring stories of others who have challenged the accepted, expanded possibility, and merged modern day life with ancient wisdom to discover their greatest potential. When you become fearless, you become limitless. Now be inspired by today's episode. Hi, I'm Vicki, and I'm here to talk to you today about how happiness comes when we open up to a more open mindset versus a fixed mindset. What do I mean by a fixed mindset? Well, a couple weeks ago, I had delivered my mom to the hospital. My dad was fighting an illness that actually eventually resulted in his transition. And I dropped my mom off at the hospital, and she called me from her iPad. And she said, "You know what? I forgot my cell phone at your house." And it just struck me so much. I'm like, I am so grateful for the fact that she knows how to use an iPad. My dad knew how to do an iPad. So throughout his last weeks of being sick and in the hospital, he could still video chat as much as he was able with the family. What would happen, though, if we were so attached to our old way of communicating that we never transitioned to cell phones? The company I used to work for used Blackberries when they came out. Of course, Blackberries were everywhere at that time, and in the corporate setting when they were new, and they were just the greatest tool ever. And the CEO of that company refused to give up his Blackberry. As Blackberries kind of died out and new versions of technology replaced it, he actually had them buy up all of the Blackberries that they could find so that he had a supply house of them. I'm guessing today he's not using a Blackberry anymore, that he's converted to something else. Because I think about how much life he would be missing out on, I would be missing out on, you would be missing out on, if you weren't open-minded to growing with the times and the technology. Now, it's easy to relate to when we put that in the example of a cell phone. I remember the days back when we made long distance calls and we worried about how minutes we talked because the long distance bill was going to be too high. To today, where I talk via multiple forms, via WhatsApp, via Zoom, via Messenger, with friends all over the world for free. Now, if you would have told me back then that someday we would all be talking for free around the world, I would have said you're crazy. Having a fixed mindset is only believing the options and the realities that you can see in front of you. I talked to a potential client the other day, and she said she's struggling in a difficult relationship. And she said, "I don't have enough money to do anything different. My ability to find a job is limited. My partner refuses to change. My kids are, in school here. I have no family nearby." And she had a lot of reasons that look on the surface like very good reasons for not making a change. But yet she's dying inside. She's miserable inside. And she's decided that her only option is to continue on in that misery for the foreseeable future. Now that is a fixed mindset, and that's how it shows up in reality. It's like walking through the mall and looking in the window of your favorite store and seeing 3 outfits in it and saying, wow, I love those outfits. And now you become attached to the fact that those are the only 3 outfits that you can wear in your life. Because they're the only ones that you can see in the window of the store. Now we would say that's crazy. And then my potential client would say, yes, but you don't understand how real this looks to me. And I would say, the dresses in the window look very real too. They look very real, like they're your only options in that store. Until you become willing to open up the door of possibilities and step inside and see what's on the other side. Now, what keeps us stuck in that fixed mindset and space? What keeps us from opening that door of possibilities? Well, one is just very simply that we have not been taught the tools and resources to do this. We've been taught and had a role model to us that fear is a closed door. Instead of saying fear is the gatekeeper of that door, but beyond it, there's something really awesome. And once we get past that gatekeeper, we discover all of the hundreds of amazing options that are on the other side of it. One tool I learned while I was going through training to be a coach is called a choice wheel. It's very simply a circle. You draw a circle on a piece of paper and you divide it into the number of slices of pie that make you happy. Maybe it's 6, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 12. And then you brainstorm an option for every slice of pie, starting from the most conservative of I'm not going to do anything different than what I'm doing right now, to the most extreme solution that your mind can't even think is possible. This is not about understanding the how. This is about understanding the reality of we have many options. We do have many options. Even when, in the case of my client, maybe reality does prevent her from walking out the door of that relationship right now, but she still has the option to keep on growing her and keep on healing her and to keep on working inside of her. That's an option no one can take away from her but herself. No one can keep her from not doing that. It reminds me of some stories that I've heard of people who were imprisoned for many, many years, unjustly imprisoned. But they didn't feel limited because in their mind, they knew their choice every day was to control how they perceived their reality and their mind. And those choices kept them going until the day when their prison doors were opened. But our fixed mindset, as a general rule, most of us are not locked behind bars. But as a general rule, our fixed mindset is the bars that keeps us locked. So using something like a choice wheel is going to help you begin to discover new things. It's a great idea to have a coach to help you with that, or a friend who understands how to help you move forward. We don't want friends that just throw us a pity party and get in the mud. Sometimes we need a friend in the mud with us, but we want that friend to be encouraging us to figure out how to get out of the mud, not just saying, oh, well, this is a great mud pit to set up house in. Okay? We want friends that encourages on to find answers and solutions. And then, as I'm just checking my notes here, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is when we have a fixed mindset, it feels like that is our life, that the circumstances around us are our life. But really, circumstances happening are our life situation. They're not our life. There's a very big distinction there. You are the person that emerged here years ago as a tiny baby. And for that period of time, your life situation was being a baby. And then as you grew, your life situation was going to high school, maybe going to college. Those things were not you. They were your life situation. You are the spirit, the person, the energy that is constant through all of those things, that is constant from the moment that you're born to the moment you take your last breath as a human and transition onto the next life. You are the constant, and you are the one experiencing those circumstances. But circumstances shift, circumstances change. And relaxing into this idea that you are not your life circumstances also helps us to separate our identity from those circumstances. When people become so identified with their life circumstances, or a political view, or a religious view, that they feel like that circumstance or viewpoint is who they are, then they get wrapped up in having to defend that. They get wrapped up in having to justify why that is. They get wrapped up in being stuck in that place and not being open to see that, maybe there is another option. Maybe there is another viewpoint. My fixed mindset when it comes to this, as an example, was I was raised in an extremely conservative religion that taught that religion in that group of people was the only way that someone could get to the next life. It's a very fixed and narrow viewpoint. Now, I've come to understand as I've expanded my perspective and my viewpoint that there are some similar threads that run through all different forms of religion. And those similar threads is the life that I'm talking about. It is the life underneath the life circumstance. So this requires opening up to who you really are. If you are not the person trapped in your circumstances, if that is not who you are, then understanding and connecting to the fact that you are a worthy human being, your desires, your goals, your dreams were planted in you as seeds to grow and to be. And that if there is a circumstance in your life that is causing you suffering, you can either choose to look at that circumstance as the problem itself or as a teacher. Now, here's what's going to happen. If you look at it, the problem itself, you're going to spend all of your energy trying to fix that circumstance to be a particular way so that you can be okay. But if you begin to open up to this circumstance as being a teacher in your life, then things are much different. Then we can relax and we can look for the lesson in the circumstance. And here's the almost magical thing that happens. When you learn the lesson, you no longer need the circumstance to be your teacher. And time after time, I've seen in my own life and in the lives of my family, friends, and clients that when they learn the lesson, the circumstance almost magically disappears. I use magic to just say that it happens in an unexplainable way. I've experienced this so many times. And I've come to understand that when I connect with who I am and I open up to the situations in my life that are causing suffering, when I open up to them being teachers, then they no longer cause suffering, and I can be open to learn the lesson and open to many different solutions coming my way. So as you've listened to me today, what has resonated with you? Is it this idea that you're stuck in some type of a super fixed mindset and you need to begin opening up? Or is it this idea that you are seeing circumstances in your life as a teacher and a guide, and you're seeing the peace and presence that brings to be able to live from that perspective? Sit with that. And then ask yourself, how can you open up even one layer further, which requires you to go one layer deeper inside of you? How can you soften and relax one more notch into the circumstances of life as your teacher. And as you do that, you're going to begin to see things that you haven't seen before. They've probably been there all along. You just never took the time to see them because you were too busy focused on trying to find the solution to the circumstance, to fix the circumstance. This idea has the power to move you to and through circumstances that appear to be limiting you or silencing you and keeping you from reaching your greatest potential. I've had that same experience of feeling like, wow, everything that I want is just right on the other side of this fear or right on the other side of this thing. And what I know now is that when you lean in to that circumstance, things open up in a way that you could never anticipate. So today, lean in. Relax. Let life be your teacher. Whatever fear is in front of you, whatever suffering in front of you, whatever life circumstances in front of you, sit back and see it as a movie. Ask what it's there to teach you. And begin to imagine the options and the beauty that lie on the other side. It's been a privilege to be here today to have this conversation with you. And I look forward to hearing how it applies in your life. Send me a note, send me an email, send me a message, and let me know what resonated with you today. Thanks for being here. If you have a topic or question you want to hear more about, send it to us at the email below. Have an inspired day.